Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this week's edition of This Week in Naturals Baseball. I'm Benjamin Kelly. Well, this week it's a special one. Brooks Pounders joins us later in the program. We talk about his career and especially what etched his name in Naturals history, forever throwing the first individual no-hitter back in June of 2013. Brooks joins us later on in the show, but first let's take a look at some events that occurred this week in Naturals history. Northwest Arkansas scored in 7 of the 9 innings in a 10-6 road win over the Tulsa Drillers on May 14th of 2012. Will Myers belted a pair of home runs in his second career multi-home run game and helped Northwest Arkansas win the second of 6 straight games from May 13th to May 18th of 2012. And in 2018 on May 15th, Nick Deeney sent Naturals fans home with a win.
Here's a set, the pitch to Deeney. He swings and belts one deep out to left field. There it goes, and the game is over. It is a walk-off 2-run home run by Nick Deeney. And the Naturals win it tonight by a final score of 4-2 in extra innings. A walk-off home run by Nick Deeney. Miller along for the ride. How about that?
It marked the first walk-off home run since May 2015 in franchise history and was the 12th of its kind all time with the win over the Arkansas Travelers. That's a look back at some events that took place this week in Naturals history. Brooks Pounders joins me next. Brooks Pounders is our guest on This Week in Naturals Baseball. It's the third installment of this, and glad to have him with us. And Brooks, you are out in Phoenix right now, kind of a unique quarantine setup for you. You and I were just talking about it. When did the quarantine start for you, and what are you doing now to just stay in baseball shape?
Obviously, when spring training got shut down, we had a couple days to figure everything out in Florida. I ended up flying home, being quarantined in Southern California for 21 days, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I have a couple of ex-teammates that are out here working out in Phoenix at a place called Fisher Institute, and they're still open for like a return to work type setting. Where we have access to a trainer and access to the turf field and the bullpen. So I'm just trying to stay as ready as possible.
So when you were quarantined out in Southern California, you were out there, I assume, with your family?
Yeah, we were there with my family and then my girlfriend's family in Newport Beach.
Nice.
And everything got pretty much shut down, and I couldn't handle being inside anymore. So I needed to go play some golf.
Yeah, there you go. So I can't believe when you were in Northwest Arkansas in 2015 for the second time, coming back from the lat injury, you had Tommy John in 2013, and I can't believe I never asked you about it, but you have arguably one of the best baseball names in the history of baseball, and it was almost better from what I understand, but your mother came in and nixed what your middle name was going to be. Is that right?
Yeah. My dad had this aspiration that he would name me Brooks Robinson Pounders, and my mom absolutely did not want that. So she had to fight her way for Casey, but it still ended up pretty much being a baseball name in the end.
Now, your dad is a former minor leaguer himself, heck of a hitter in the minor leagues. His career stalled out in AAA. And I want to ask you now about your big league debut in 2016. I know that meant a lot to him, obviously a lot to you because you made the big leagues. But just take us back to that moment and what just the emotions that you two shared together, knowing that you both really accomplished a major league debut.
Right. I mean, that was pretty special for both of us. Obviously, getting the call, you always want – it's a great call as a player. But the first person I called was my dad, and it was actually the 4th of July back at home and when I got the news. So my debut was the 5th, but he got on a flight and made it to Canada like just in time for game time on the 5th. And it was a pretty special moment to share for both of us, being able to just be there and have him there. Obviously, I wish my mom would have been there, but unfortunately, her passport wasn't up to par at the point. So she met us in Kansas City the following day. So that was nice.
So wait, so you just had your dad there, and your mom couldn't come because her passport wasn't up to date?
Yeah, it expired. So Her passport expired, but luckily we were only there in Toronto for another day after the debut. So she flew to Kansas City immediately and got to spend it with us. But yeah, my dad hopped on a flight immediately and got out there. So it was awesome to have him around.
So how different is the feeling from making that first appearance to continuing to make different appearances in a big league game? How do you, I mean, just compare and contrast that emotion and that different mentality, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much numb the first time you take the mound in the big leagues. If anybody tells you that they're like completely there, they're probably lying to you. But it's just about knowing what you can do and knowing your skill set and knowing that you can pretty much. I mean, you don't have to change much. I mean, the guys are better hitters, obviously, but they're human. I mean, all-star in the big leagues hits 300, and he fails 7 out of 10 times. So as a pitcher, I mean, obviously the hitters are better, but you have to remember that they're human and they make mistakes, and you're going to get them out more than that you're going to get hit, obviously. So it's basically just about staying like grounded and keep working every day, because it's a gift to be in the big leagues. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, for some people it's quicker than others, but getting there is the easy part, and staying there is obviously the hardest part.
Brooks Pounders is joining us here on This Week in Naturals Baseball, and he has, to his credit, the only individual no-hitter in Naturals history. And when I initially reached out to you, Brooks, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And I went back and looked at some of the play-by-play and looked at some of the highlights from it. You faced 29 guys. There was a guy that reached on an error in the 3rd inning, and then in the 5th inning, you hit another guy. But just when did you first realize that, like, hey, my stuff's really working tonight? Because leading up to that, you had only gotten into the rotation. It was only your 2nd month into the rotation.
Right. During that year, I was working a lot with our pitching coach at the time, Jim Brower. Picking his brain a lot. Obviously, he helped me tremendously with the uses of some pitches and just the mentality that you should take as becoming a starter. Obviously, I was out of the bullpen for a little bit before that, so it was just kind of like a mentality switch, obviously. But it's funny that, I mean, I didn't realize I had my stuff until about the 5th inning, because the bullpen leading up to that game, like my pregame bullpen was awful. It was the worst I had ever thrown. Feeling it out for the first 3 innings, just getting lucky, like guys making unbelievable plays behind me. But I mean, once you start getting into the 6th inning, you can kind of feel it a little bit. Nobody's sitting around you. Nobody's talking to you. Nobody's doing much. But I made it a point, like, to go in up to Brower in between every inning and just like talk to him about the next 3 guys coming up. And that was kind of my routine when I was starting, just to kind of figure out how to attack those guys and how to make pitches to those guys. But yeah, I didn't want it to feel like there was something special going on, but by everybody not talking to me. But having to sit for like 50 minutes or whatever it was in the bottom of the 8th was not easy to do without trying to. Everybody was staying away from me, so I had made it a point to go up and talk to everybody else. I couldn't do it anymore.
That 8th inning, I went back and looked at that. There were 6 runs, 5 hits. Whit Merrifield had a 3-run double for that 6-run 8th inning. There was a pitching change. There were 2 mound visits. They even changed their catcher halfway during that inning too. And there was a wild pitch. So how did you entertain yourself, and how did you just remain focused to get those final 3 outs for the 9th inning?
I honestly don't even know. Like, going into the 9th inning, it's just like a blur. Like, you got to grit your way through you're tired, you're exhausted, you just went 8. Like, you got to grit your way through the final 3 outs. And I think, I want to say Eibner made a diving catch in center field in the 9th. It was just like, there's so many things that fell into place for that thing to happen, and it's special. I mean, Chesler made like a barehanded, it was like a swinging bunt to him at third base, and he like barehanded it and threw off balance, got the guy by barely a foot. But I mean, I don't really know how to explain how to like stay locked in. I don't really feel like I was locked in after like that long of an outing or an inning. I was just like, hey man, get me out there, if this thing happens, it happens. But I think at that point, everybody was just trying to go home after that long inning.
Do you think if you came close to throwing a no-hitter again, which we all obviously hope you do, but do you think you would recognize that potentially this is something similar to that evening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you get into the seventh inning, you know there's something special going on. I mean, obviously, if I got the chance to throw one in the big leagues, I mean, I'd probably be much more aware of what was going on than a double-A start in June. But hey, like, absolutely, though. If you got one in the big leagues, I mean, even in AAA, to throw one in general is just special, and I'm glad like all my teammates and everybody were there to celebrate with me. It was a great time. I mean, Juan Gratterall, the catcher, called an amazing game that day, and we were just on the same page from pitch one.
Brooks Pounders is joining us here on This Week in Naturals Baseball, and that no-hitter was kind of a pinnacle of that 2013 season for you. You came into Double-A at 22. You finished out the year strong, and then the injuries kind of hit place, and then you came back to Northwest Arkansas in 15. And since then, you made your big league debut in 16. How have you just seen, kind of that moment and how your career has gone throughout? It's been somewhat challenging, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, from that point forward, like it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was like the progression every year. It was low A, high A, double A. Like you could kind of feel like, hey, I'm close. Like I'm one good week away, But since then, yeah, Tommy John, rehab through that, felt amazing throughout the whole process. Bounced back pretty quick, went to Idaho Falls, and then came back to spring training the next year. And the lat injury happened in 15. Rehab was pretty smooth with that, and got back to Double-A in 15. Ended up going to the fall league that year. Like things skyrocketed again with the amount of stuff that I did with our pitching coordinator, Larry Carter. He got me on the right track, and it's just been kind of I've had a lot of success, don't get me wrong, but obviously I would hope that success is going to translate into the big leagues this year. And I'm excited to be with the Rays, knowing all like the analytical stuff that they have for me and how much that it's going to help me progress in my career. I've never been really presented with that kind of information that I had gotten in like a short amount of time that I did this year in spring. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, and that's the thing. You everything that I've read about you and heard about you when you were with the Naturals, you had a lot of swing and miss stuff. So how have the analytics that Tampa Bay has presented you, how has that just helped improve you and help make you more confident?
Yeah, it's definitely like pitch usage and stuff like that. Going with my 3 best pitches instead of trying to add like a 4th pitch in there. Pitching to my strengths at all times. I know that my fastball has a lot of carry on it, so I'm going to be – they want me to attack the top of the zone more so than I normally would, and then use my slider and split off of that. So, I mean, I was having a really good spring. Took an outing or two to kind of get my feet wet, but once I got my feet wet, we were hitting the ground rolling, and the information that like has been presented to me as far as how to attack certain guys and what to use, I think it's only going to be helpful. And they're obviously doing something right with what they got going on there. So I'm excited to be a part of it, and hopefully have the chance to make that team if we do have a season this year.
And, I talk a lot with mainly coaches and front office personnel and on some of these interviews. And, they all talk about how important it is with the analytics of today's game. They're all taking classes, reading books. How much as a player do you guys do that?
I mean, you have to adapt with the times, obviously. I first got introduced to the whole analytics side of it last year when I was with Cleveland in camp, and they were a pretty big analytics organization. But, for me, it's only helpful information. But you have to have it digested. Like for me, obviously, some guys are more in tune with the analytics side of things. But for me, I kind of need that human element to kind of digest it and kind of restructure it for me to kind of completely understand it. But, that's just the way baseball is going now. I mean, it's great. And I think that it's only going to get more in depth with analytic. But for me, you need that human element personally to kind of like break everything down. And some people are not visual learners, you know. I mean, some people are physical learners. So having that human element on that side to kind of dumb it down per se is it's super helpful for me.
Brooks Pounders joining us here, and what have you been doing just to keep your mind engaged in baseball? Have you been watching any of these old games that ESPN and MLB Network are playing?
I mean, I try to catch as much as I can. My girlfriend doesn't really want to sit and watch baseball every night, so I'm more into the trash TV right now on Bravo of like Summer House and stuff like that. So that's what she wants to watch. But yeah, I mean, coming into the facility Monday through Friday for me here where we're at, being surrounded by, I mean, they have a lot of the Arizona Cardinal football players in here, and just seeing how they're getting ready for their season. And then there's a group of like 10 of us baseball players getting ready to go back. So we kind of support each other in this time, you know, and keeping everybody like working out as a group kind of pushes the next person a little bit more. So it's kind of like a team feeling. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely trying to stay engaged, but it's getting tough.
Yeah.
I mean, the first month was kind of easy. Like, hey, we just went through spring training a little bit. Like, it's an extension of the off season, but now we're getting into like mid-May. As soon as we creep into June, you know, it's going to start being really tough for me. I finally realized like, hey, there's something really going on it's not normal everyday life.
So what's your go-to Bravo show? Are you a 90 Day Fiance guy before the 90?
No.
Oh no, you're not.
I'm big on the Summer House right now.
It is good.
I don't know why.
I'm not caught.
I don't know why at all, but I just like seeing close to 40-year-old people just living out of their mind. So I don't really understand the concept of a summer house.
No.
You're gonna pay $10,000 in rent to live in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my use out of my $10,000 to live in Manhattan. So, but I mean, it's entertaining. It just kills the rest of the day when I'm done here at 2:00.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear that I'm not the only one that has to watch that Bravo stuff too. But I am on the 90 Day Fiance train, and I'm telling you, Ed and Rosemarie, they're quite entertaining. I would highly recommend.
All right, I'll have to give it a watch. It's better. Anything's better than the Kardashians.
Yeah, I hear that. Brooks, really appreciate you taking some time out today, and good luck the rest of the way, and stay healthy, stay safe.
Thanks, BK.
That's Brooks Pounders joining us here on This Week in Naturals Baseball. We'll be back next week with our next installment.